so I can... The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations proudly present Orson Welles and the BC Theatre on air in The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells.
Ladies and gentlemen, the director of the Mercury Theater and star of these broadcasts, Orson Welles.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. We know now that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complaisance, people went to and fro over the earth, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which, by chance or design, man inherited from the dark mystery of time and space. Yet across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds as ours are to the beasts in the jungle, intellects vast, cool, and unsympathetic regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. In the 39th year of the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment. Business was better. The war scare was over. More men were back at work. Sales were picking up. On this particular evening, October 30th, the Crossley service estimated that roughly 32 million people were listening in on radios.
For the next 24 hours, not much change in temperature. A slight atmospheric disturbance has been located over Nova Scotia, causing low-pressure area to move over the northeastern states. There's lots of rain and winds of light gale force. Maximum temperature, 66. Minimum, 48. This weather report has been brought to you by the Government Weather Bureau. We take you now to the Meridian Room at the Hotel Park Plaza, where you'll be entertained by the music of Ramon Recao and his orchestra.
Do I just keep talking? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From the Meridian Room in From the Meridian Room in the Park Plaza Hotel in New York City, we bring to you the music of Ramon Recao and his orchestra. Leading off with with a touch of the Spanish, Ramon Recao leads off with La Cumbrecita.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our broadcast of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of Mount Jennings Observatory, Chicago, Illinois, reported observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The spectroscope indicates this gas to be hydrogen and moving towards Earth with enormous velocity. Professor Pearson of Princeton Observatory confirms Farrell's observation and describes the phenomenon as, quote, like a jet of blue flame shot from a gun, unquote. We return you now to the music of Ramon Recao, playing for you in the Meridian Room of the Park Plaza Hotel, situated in downtown New York.
And now, a tune that never loses favor, the ever-popular Stardust, Ramon Recao and his orchestra.
Ladies and gentlemen, following on the news given in our bulletin a moment ago, the Government Meteorological Bureau has requested that the large observatories of the country keep an astronomical watch on any further disturbances occurring on the planet Mars. Due to the unusual nature of this occurrence, we have arranged an interview with a noted astronomer, Professor Pearson, who will give us his views on this event. In a few moments, we will take you to the Princeton Observatory at Princeton, New Jersey. We return you, until then, to the music of Ramon Recao and his orchestra. We are ready now to take you to Princeton, New Jersey, where Carla Phillips, our commentator, will interview Professor Richard Pearson, famous astronomer. We take you now to the Princeton Observatory.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carla Phillips speaking to you from the Observatory of Princeton. Right now, I am standing in a large, semicircular room, pitch black except for an oblong split in the ceiling. Through this opening, I can see a sprinkling of stars that cast a kind of frosty glow over the intricate mechanism. The humming sound that you hear is the ticking of the clockwork. Professor Pearson stands directly above me on a small platform. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to be patient during any interruption that may occur during our interview. Despite his ceaseless watch of the heavens, Professor Pearson may be interrupted by telephone or other communications. He is in constant touch with the astronomical centers of the universe. Professor, may I begin our questions?
At any time, Mrs. Phillips.
Professor, would you please tell our listening audience exactly what you see as you view the planet Mars through your telescope?
Nothing unusual at the moment. A red disk swimming in a blue sea. Transverse stripes across that disk. Quite distinct now because Mars happens to be at the point closest to Earth. In opposition, as we call it.
In your opinion, what do these transverse stripes signify, Professor?
Not canals, I assure you, Mrs. Phillips.
I see.
Although that's the popular conjecture of those who believe Mars to be inhabited. From a purely scientific standpoint, these stripes merely resemble atmospheric conditions peculiar to the planet.
Then you're convinced, as a scientist, that living intelligence as we know it does not exist on Mars.
I'd say the chances against it are 1,000 to 1.
By the way, Professor, for the benefit of our listeners, how far is Mars from the planet?
Approximately 40 million miles.
Well, that seems a safe enough distance.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, just one moment, please. Professor Pearson has just been handed a letter. While he reads it, let me remind you that we are speaking to you from the Observatory of Princeton, New Jersey, with world-famous astronomer Professor Pearson. Oh, one moment, please. Professor Pearson has just been handed the message of... I've just been handed the message of which Professor has just received. Professor, may I read this to our listening audience?
Certainly, Mrs. Phillips.
I will now read you the wire addressed to Professor Pearson from Dr. Gray at the National History Museum of New York. Quote, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Seismograph registered shock of almost earthquake intensity found within a 20-mile radius of Princeton. Please investigate. Signed, Lloyd Gray, National History Museum, New York. Unquote. Professor, does this occurrence have anything to do with the disturbances found on Mars?
Hardly. This is probably a meteor of unusual size, and its occurrence at this time is merely a coincidence. However, we shall conduct a search as soon as daylight permits.
Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you that for the past 10 minutes we've been speaking with Professor Pearson, noted astronomer, from the Observatory of Princeton. We take you now to our New York studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. Toronto, Canada. Professor Morse of Macmillan University reports observing a total of 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 7:45 p.m. and 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This confirms earlier reports received from American observatories. Now, nearer home, comes a special bulletin from Trenton, New Jersey. It is reported that at 8:50 p.m., a huge flaming object believed to be meteorite fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey, just 22 miles from Trenton. The flash in the sky was seen within a radius of several hundred miles, and the noise of the impact was heard as far north as Elizabeth, New Jersey. We have dispatched a special mobile unit to the scene, and we'll have our commentator, Carla Phillips, give you a word picture as soon as she arrives there from Princeton. In the meantime, we take you to the Hotel Martinet in Brooklyn, where Bobby Millette and his orchestra are offering a program of dance music. We take you now to Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carla Phillips again, out of the Wilmouth Farm at Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Professor Pearson and I made the 11 miles in a mere 10 minutes. I don't know how to explain for you this scene, like something out of a modern Arabian Nights. The object seems to be over there, half buried in a vast pit. It must have struck with terrific force. There's splinters all around from a tree it must have hit on its way down. From what I can see, doesn't look much like a meteor, at least not the meteors I've seen. This object has more of a cylindrical shape, with a diameter of, what would you say, Professor?
What's that?
What would you say, what's the diameter of this?
Approximately 30 yards.
30 yards. The metal on the sheath is a sort of whitish yellow. I've never seen anything like it. Curious spectators now are pressing forward in spite of the police to keep them back. They're getting in front of my line of vision. Would you mind standing to one side,
One
please?
side there, one side.
While the police are roping off the people, I'm going to speak with Mr. Wilmoth, owner of the farm here. Mr. Wilmoth, would you please tell our listening audience exactly what happened when this object dropped into your backyard? Closer, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Wilmoth.
Well, I was listening to the radio.
Closer and louder, please.
Pardon me?
Louder, please, and closer.
Yes'm. Well, I was listening to the radio, kind of halfways. That professor fella was talking about Mars, so...
Yeah, and then what happened?
Well, as I was saying, I was listening to the radio, kind of halfways.
Yes, and then you saw something?
Well, not first off. I heard something.
And what did you hear?
A hissing sound, like this. Kinda like a 4th of July rocket.
Yes, and then what happened?
Well, I turned my head out the window and I could have swore I was to sleep and dreaming.
Yes?
I seen that kind of greenish streak and then, zingo! Something smacked the ground, knocked me clear out of my chair.
Well, were you frightened, Mr. Wilmoth?
Well, I don't quite know, actually. I reckon I was riled.
Thank you, Mr. Wilmoth.
Do you want me to tell you some more?
No. That's all right. That's plenty. Ladies and gentlemen, more and more, all of the people are continuing to press forward. And some of the more daring souls are now pressing forward, and their silhouettes stand out against the metal sheen. One person wants to touch the thing. They're getting in an argument with the police. The police wins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something I haven't mentioned to you yet in all this excitement, but you may have already heard it on your radios. Listen, please. Do you hear it? It's a sort of curious humming sound coming from within the object. Now we're not more than 25 feet away. Oh, Professor Pearson!
Yes, Mrs. Phillips?
What's the meaning of the scraping noise coming from inside the thing?
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
Do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial, not from this Earth. Friction in the atmosphere usually tears holes in a meteorite. This thing is cylindrical, and as you can see, a very smooth shape.
Just a minute. Something is happening. The top is beginning to rotate. It's beginning to unscrew. The thing must be hollow. Oh my goodness! Something's beginning to come out. Someone or something. Are those eyes? It might be a face. It might be... Good heavens! Something's wriggling out of the shadow like a gray snake. There comes another one. And another one. And another one. They look like tentacles to me. I can see the whole thing's body now. It's large like a bear, and it glistens like wet leather. But ladies and gentlemen, that face, it's indescribable. Oh, there's eyes and they gleam like a serpent, and its V-shaped mouth has rimless lips that seem to quiver and pulsate. The thing seems held down by possibly gravity or something. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll have to move to a different position so I can keep talking to you, but I'll keep speaking to you as long as I can see and as long as I can speak. Thank you.
We are bringing you an eyewitness account of what's happening on the Wilmuth Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. We return you now to Carla Phillips at Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
Ladies and Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, standing at the back of the stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wilmuth's garden. More state police arrived, about 30 of them. I see the captain. The captain's conferring with someone. Oh, it's Professor Pearson. Yes, it is. Now Professor moves away from the object and studies it. One policewoman emerges. She's carrying a pole with a white handkerchief. A flag of truce. If those creatures know what that means, what anything means. Oh my goodness, something's rising out of the shadow. It's a mirror, and there's a jet of flame, and it goes right at the oncoming men. Oh, good heavens, they're bursting into flame! Fields caught fire. The woods, the barns, the gas tanks of automobiles. It's everywhere. It's coming right this way, 25 yards to my right.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill. Evidently, there is some difficulty with our field's transmission. However, we will return to that point at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, we have a late bulletin from San Diego, California. Professor Indelkoffer, speaking at the California Astronomical Society, expressed the opinion that the explosions on Mars are undoubtedly nothing more than severe volcanic disturbances on the surface of the planet. We continue now with our piano interlude.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have just been handed a message that came in from Grover's Mill by telephone. Just one moment, please. At least 40 people, including 6 state troopers, lie dead in a field east of the village of Grover's Mill, their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition. The next voice you will hear will be that of Brigadier General Montgomery Smith, commander of the state militia at Trenton, New Jersey. And gentlemen, you have just been listening to General Montgomery Smith, commander of the state militia at Trenton. In the meantime, further details on the catastrophe at Grover's Mill have been coming in. The strange creatures, after unleashing their deadly assault, crawled back into their pit and made no attempt to prevent the efforts of firemen to recover the bodies and extinguish the flames. The combined fire departments of Mercer County are working to extinguish the flames which menace the entire countryside. We have been unable to establish communication with our mobile unit at Grover's Mill, but we hope to return you there at the earliest possible moment. In 1 second. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just been informed that we have finally established communication with an eyewitness of the tragedy. Professor Pearson has been located at a farmhouse near Grover's Mill, where he has established an emergency observation post. As a scientist, he will give you his explanation of the calamity. The next voice you will hear will be that of Professor Pearson's, brought to you by Direct Wire. Professor Pearson.
Of the creatures in the rocket cylinder at Grover's Mill, I can offer you no authoritative information, either to their nature, their origin, or their purposes here on Earth. Of their destructive instrument, I might venture some conjectural explanation. For lack of a better term, I shall refer to this mysterious weapon as a heat ray. It is all too evident that these creatures have scientific knowledge far in advance of our own. It is my guess that they are able to generate an intense heat in a chamber of practically absolute no conductivity. They can then project this heat in a parallel beam against any object they choose by means of a polished parabolic mirror of unknown composition, much as a lighthouse projects a beam of light using a mirror. That is my conjecture of the heat ray.
Thank you, Professor Pearson. Ladies and gentlemen, here is a bulletin from Trenton. It is a brief statement informing us that the charred body of Carla Phillips has been identified in a Trenton hospital. Here is a bulletin from Washington, D.C. The Office of the Director of the National Red Cross reports 10 units of Red Cross emergency workers have been assigned to the headquarters of the state militia stationed near Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Now here is a message from the State Police, Princeton Junction. The fires at Grover's Mill and vicinity are now under control. Scouts report all quiet in the pit, and there is no sign of life appearing from the mouth of the cylinder. Here is a special statement from Mr. Harry McDonald, Vice President in charge of operations.
We have received a request from the state militia at Trenton to place in their disposal our entire broadcasting facilities. In view of the gravity of the situation, and believing that the radio has a responsibility to serve in the public's interest at all times, we will be turning over our entire broadcasting facilities to the state militia at Trenton.
We take you now to the field headquarters of the state militia, stationed near Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
This is Captain Lansing of the Signal Corps, attached to the state militia, now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Grover's Mill. Situation arising from the reported presence of certain individuals of unidentified nature is now under complete control. The cylindrical object, which lies in a pit directly below our position, is guarded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry, without heavy field pieces but adequately armed with rifles and machine guns. All cause for alarm, if such cause ever existed, is now entirely unjustified. The things, whatever they are, do not even venture to poke their heads from above their pit. I can see their hiding place plainly in the glare of the searchlights here. With all the reported resources, these things can scarcely stand up against heavy machine gun fire. Well, anyways, it's an interesting outing for the troop. I can make out their khaki uniforms crossing back and forth in the front of the lights. Looks almost like a real war. There appears to be some smoke coming out of the woods bordering the Millstone River. Probably fire started by campers. Well, we ought to see some action soon. One of the companies is deploying to the left flank. One quick thrust and it'll all be over. Wait a minute. I see something on top of the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow. Now the troops are closing to the edge of the Wilmoth farm. 7,000 men closing into an old metal tube. Let's help, brother. Wait a second. That wasn't a shadow. It's something moving. Solid metal. Sort of a shield-like affair. Now it's going higher and higher. Why, it's standing on legs, actually rearing up on a sort of metal framework. Now now it's above the trees and the searchlights are on it. Hold on.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our own eyes leads to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars. The battle that took place tonight at Grover's Mill has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by an army in modern times. 7,000 men armed with rifles and machine guns, pitted against a single fighting machine from the invaders from Mars. 120 known survivors. The rest strewn across the battle area from Plainsboro to Grover's Mill, crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster or burned to cinders by its heat ray. The monster is now in control of the middle section of New Jersey and has effectively cut the state in half. Communication lines are down from Pennsylvania to the Atlantic Ocean. Railroad tracks are torn and service from New York to Philadelphia discontinued, except for routing a few of the trains through Allentown and Phoenixville. Highways to the north, south, and west are clogged with frantic human traffic. Police and Army reserves are unable to control the mad flight. By morning, the fugitives will have swelled Camden, Trenton, and Philadelphia. It is estimated to twice their normal population. Martial law prevails throughout New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. And now, we take you to Washington for a special broadcast on the national emergency, the Secretary of the Interior.
Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation that confronts the country, nor the concern of your government in protecting the lives and property of its people. However, I wish to impress upon you, private citizens and public officials, all of you, the urgent need of calm and resourceful action. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confined to a comparatively small area, and we may place our faith in the military forces to keep them there. In the meantime, placing our faith in God, we must continue our duties, each and every one of us, so that we may face this destructive adversary with a nation united, courageous, and consecrated to the preservation of human supremacy on this earth. I thank you.
We have just heard the Secretary of the Interior speaking from Washington. Bulletins too numerous to read are piling up in the studio here. We are informed the central portion of New Jersey is blacked out from radio communication due to the effect of the heat ray upon power lines and electrical equipment. Here is a special bulletin, New York. Cables have been received from English, French, and German scientific bodies offering assistance. Astronomers report continued gas outbursts at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The majority voiced the opinion that the enemy will be reinforced by additional rocket machines. There have been several attempts to locate Professor Pearson of Princeton, who has observed Martians at close range. It is feared he was lost in the recent battle. Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report 3 Martian machines visible above treetops, moving north towards Somerville with population fleeing ahead of them. The heat ray is not in use. Although advancing at express train speed, invaders pick their way carefully. They seem to be making a conscious effort to avoid destruction of cities and countryside. However, they stop to uproot power lines, bridges, and railroad tracks. Their apparent objective is to crush resistance, paralyze communication, and disorganize human society. Here is a bulletin from Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Coon hunters have stumbled on a second cylinder similar to the first embedded in the Great Swamp 20 miles south of the Morristown. Army field places are proceeding from New York to blow up second invading unit before cylinder can be opened and the fighting machine rigged. They are taking up a position in the foothills of WotW Mountains. Another bulletin from Langham Field, Virginia. Scouting planes report enemy machines, now 3 in number, increasing speed northward, kicking over houses and trees in their evident haste to form a conjunction with their allies south of Morristown. Machines also sighted by telephone operator east of Middlesex with 10 miles of playing field. Here's a bulletin from Winstonfield, Long Island. A fleet of Army bombers carrying heavy explosions flying north in pursuit of enemy. Scouting planes act as guides. They keep the speeding enemy in sight. The artillery line... Just a moment, please, ladies and gentlemen. We've run special wires to the artillery line in adjacent villages to give you direct reports in the zone of the advancing enemy. First, we take you to the battery of the 22nd Field Artillery, located in the WotW Mountains.
Range, 32 meters.
32 meters.
Projection, 37 degrees.
37 degrees.
Fire!
140 yards to the right.
Shift range, 31 meters.
31 meters.
Projection, 39 degrees.
39 degrees.
Fire!
A hit, sir. We've got the tripod on one of them. They've stopped. The others are trying to repair it.
Quick, get the range. Shift 30 meters.
30 meters.
Projection, 29 degrees.
29 degrees.
Fire!
Can't see the shell land, sir. They're letting off a smoke.
What is it?
A black smoke, sir. Lying close to the ground, moving this way. It's moving fast.
Put on gas masks. Shift to 24 meters.
24 meters.
Projection, 24 degrees.
24 degrees.
Fire!
Still can't see, sir. The smoke's coming nearer.
Get the range.
22 meters.
22 meters.
22 meters.
Projection, 21 degrees.
21 degrees. This is Army bombing plane D-843 off Bayonne, New Jersey. Lieutenant Vogt, reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. This is Lieutenant Vogt, reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. Enemy tripod machines now in sight. Reinforced by 3 machines from the Morristown cylinder. 6 altogether. 1 machine partially crippled. Believed hit by shell from Army guns in Watchung Mountains. Guns now appear silent. They're letting off a heavy black smoke. Of extreme density. Nature, unknown. No sign of heat ray. The enemy now turns east, crossing Passac River and heading into the Jersey marshes. One straddles the Pluisky Skyway. Evident objective, New York City. They're pushing down a high-tension power station. The machines are close together now and we're ready to attack. Planes circling ready to strike. 1,000 yards and we'll be over the first. 800, 600, 400, 200. There they go, the giant arm raised. Green flash. They're spraying us with flame. 2,000 feet. No chance to release bombs. The engines are giving out. Only one thing. Drop on them. Plane and all. Now the engine's gone. 8!
This is Langham Field. Go ahead. This is Newark, New Jersey. This is Newark, New Jersey. Warning, poisonous black smoke falls over Jersey marshes. Urge population to move into open spaces. Automobiles use routes 7, 23, 24. Avoid congested areas. Smoke now pouring over Raymond Boulevard.
2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling 8X3R. Come in, please.
This is 8X3R, coming back at 2X2L.
How's reception? How's reception? Okay, please. Where are you, 8X3R? What's the matter? Where are you?
Speaking to the Broadcasting Building, New York City. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as the Martians approach.
Estimated in the last 2 hours, 3 million people have fled along the roads to the north. Hutchinson River Parkway still kept open for motor traffic. Avoid bridges to Long Island hopelessly jammed. All communication with Jersey Shore closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Our army is wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here until the end. People are holding service here below us, in the cathedral. Now we look down on the harbor. All manner of boats, overloaded with fleeing population. Streets are all jammed. Noise and crowds like New Year's Eve in the city. Wait a minute. The enemy is now inside above the palisades. Five great machines. First one is crossing the river. I can see it from here. Wading the Hudson like a man wading through a brook. I have a bulletin. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One outside of Buffalo, Chicago, St. Louis seem to be timed and spaced. Now the first machine reaches the shore. He stands, watching, looking over the city. His steel, cowlish head is even with the skyscrapers. He waits for the others. They rise like a line of new towers on the city's west side. Now they're lifting their metal hands. This is the end now. Smoke comes out, black smoke, drifting over the city. People in the streets see it now. They run from it, thousands of them, towards the East River, dropping like rats. Now the smoke's spreading faster. It's reached Times Square. People try to run from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. And the smoke's crossing 6th Avenue, 5th Avenue, 100 yards away. It's 50 feet.
2x2L calling CQ. 2x2L calling CQ. 2x2L calling CQ. New York? Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone?
This is a CBS presentation of Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater. On air in an original dramatization of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. This broadcast will continue in a few minutes. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
As I set these notes down on paper, I'm obsessed by the thought that I may be the last living man on this earth. I've been hiding in this empty house outside of Grover's Mill, a small island of daylight cut off by the black smoke from the rest of the world. All that happened before the arrival of these monstrous creatures now seems part of another life, a life with no continuity with the present, furtive existence of the lonely derelict who pencils these words on some astronomical papers bearing the name of Richard Pearson. I looked down at my blackened hands, my torn shoes, my tattered clothes, and I tried to connect them to a man who lives at Princeton and who on the night of October 30th glimpsed through his telescope an orange splash of light on a distant planet. My wife, my children, my students, my observatory, my books, my world. Where are they? Did they ever exist? Am I Richard Pearson? Do days exist without calendars? Does time pass when there are no human hands left to wind the clocks? In writing down my daily life, I tell myself I shall preserve human history between the dark covers of the small book that was meant to record the movements of the stars, but to write I must live, and to live I must eat. I find moldy bread in the kitchen, an orange not too spoiled to swallow. I keep watch at the window. From time to time, I catch sight of a Martian above the black smoke. The smoke still holds the house in its black coil, but at length there's a hissing sound, and a Martian appears over the house, mounted on his machine, spraying the air with a jet of steam, as if to dissipate the smoke. I watch in a corner as his huge metal legs nearly brush against the house. Exhausted from terror, I fall asleep. It's morning. Morning! The sun streams in the window. The black cloud of gas has lifted, and the scorched meadows to the north look as though a black snowstorm had passed over them. I venture from the house. I find my way to a road. Occasionally I find a wrecked car, baggage overturned, a blackened skeleton. I push on north. For some reason I feel safer trailing the Martians than running away from them. And I keep a careful watch. I've seen the Martians feed. Should I see one of their machines over the trees, I'm ready to fling myself flat on the earth. I come up to a chestnut tree. October. Chestnuts are ripe. I fill my pockets. I must keep alive. 2 days I wander in a vague northerly direction through a desolate world. Finally, I notice a living creature, a small red squirrel in a beech tree. I stare at him in wonder. He stares at me back. I believe at that moment me and the animal shared the same emotion, the sheer joy of finding another living being. I push on north. I find dead cows in a brackish field, and beyond the charred ruins of a dairy, the silo remains standing guard over the wasteland like a lighthouse deserted by the sea. Astride the silo perches a weathercock. The arrow points north. Next day I come to a city vaguely familiar in its contours, yet its buildings strangely dwarfed and leveled off, as if a giant had sliced off his highest towers with a capricious sweep of his hand. I reached the outskirts. I found Newark, undemolished, but humbled by some whim of the advancing Martians. Presently, with an odd feeling of being watched, I caught sight of something crouching in a doorway. I made a step towards it. It rose up and became a woman. A woman, armed with a large knife. I come from many places a long time ago, from Princeton.
Princeton, huh? That's near Grover's Mill.
Yes?
Grover's Mill. There's no food here. This is my country. All this end of town down to the river. There's only food for one. Which way are you going?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for people.
What was that? Did you hear something just then?
No, only a bird. Oh, a live bird.
Yeah, you get to know that birds have shadows these days. Hey, we're in the open here. Let's crawl in this fur whisper and talk.
Have you seen Martians?
Nah, they've gone over to New York. At night, the sky is alive with their light, just as if people were still living in it. By day, 5 days ago, a couple of them carried something big across the flats from the airport. I think they're learning how to fly.
To fly?
Yeah, fly.
Then it's all over for humanity. Stranger, there's still you and I, 2 of us left.
Yeah, they got themselves in solid. They wrecked the greatest country in the world. Those green stars, they're probably falling somewhere every night. They've only lost one machine. There isn't anything to do. We're done. We're away.
Stranger, where were you? You're in a uniform.
Yeah, what's left of it. I was in the militia. National Guard? That's good! There wasn't any war than there's war between men and ants.
Yes, but we're edible ants, I found that out. What'll they do to us?
I thought it all out. Right now, we're caught as we're wanted. The Martian only has to go a few miles to get found. But they won't keep on doing that. No. They'll begin catching us systematically. They'll be the best in throwing us in cages and things. They haven't begun on us yet.
Not begun.
Not begun. All that's happened so far is because we don't have sense enough to keep quiet. Bothering them with guns and such stuff and losing our heads and such control. Now, instead of arresting our own line, we've got to fix ourselves up. Fix ourselves up according to the way things are now. Civilization, progress, done!
Yes, but if so, what's there to live for?
Well, there won't be any more concerts for a million years or so. And no nice little dinners at restaurants. If it's amusement you're after, I guess the game's up.
What is there left?
Life! That's what! I want to live. Yeah, and so do you. We're not going to be exterminated, and I don't mean to be caught either. Fastened and bred like enough!
What are you going to do?
I'm going on right under their feet. I've got a plan. We are finished. We don't know enough. We've got to learn plenty before we've got a chance. And we've got to live and keep free while we learn. See? I've thought it all out, see?
No, tell me the rest.
Well, it isn't all of us that are made for wild beasts. And that's what it's got to be. That's why I watched you. Watched you! All these little office workers that used to live in these houses, they'd be no good. They hadn't any stuff in them. They used to run off to work. I've seen hundreds of them. Run in to catch their commuter's train in the morning, afraid they'd be canned if they didn't. Running back at night, afraid they won't be in time for dinner. Lives insured and a little invested in case of accidents. Yeah, and on Sundays, worried about the hereafter. The Martians will be a godsend for those guys. Nice, roomy cages, good food, careful breeding, no worries. Yeah, in about a week or so, chasing about the fields on empty stomachs, they'll come and be glad to be caught.
You've thought it all out, haven't you?
Sure, you bet I have. That isn't all. These Martians, they're gonna make pets of some of them, train them to do tricks. Who knows? Get sentimental over the pet boy who grew up and had to be killed. Yeah, and some, maybe they'll hunt to kill us.
No, that's impossible. No human being.
Yes, they will. There's men who'll do it gladly. If one of them ever comes after me, why?
In the meantime, you and I and others like us, where are we to live when the Martians own the Earth?
I've got it all figured out. We're gonna live underground. I've been thinking about the sewers. Under New York, there are miles and miles of them. The main ones are big enough for anybody. And there's cellars, vaults, underground storerooms, railway tunnels, subways. You begin to see, huh? We'll get a bunch of strong fellas together, no weak ones. That rubbish, out.
As you meant me to go.
Well, I gave you a chance, didn't I?
We won't quarrel about that. Go on.
Well, we've got to make safe places for us to stay in, see? Get all the books we can, science books. That's where men like you come in, see? We'll raid the museums. We'll even spy on the Martians. It may not be so much we have to learn before. But listen, just imagine this. 4 or 5 of their own fighting machines suddenly start off. Heat rays right and left, and not a Martian in them. Not a Martian in them, see? But humans who've learned the way how. It may even be in our own time. Gee, imagine having one of them lovely things with a heat ray wide and free. We turn it on Martians. We turn it on humans. We bring everybody down on their knees.
That's your plan.
Yeah. You, me, and a few more of us.
we'd own the world!
I see.
Hey! Hey, what's the matter? Where are you going?
Not to your world. Bye, stranger. Well, after parting with the artilleryman, I came at last to the Holland Tunnel. I entered that silent tube, anxious to know the fate of the great city on the other side of the Hudson. Cautiously, I came out of the tunnel and made my way up Canal Street. I reached 14th Street, and there again were black powder and several bodies, and the evil, ominous smell from the gratings of the cellars of some of the housings. I wandered up through the 30s and 40s. I stood alone on Times Square. I caught sight of a lean dog running down 7th Avenue with a piece of dark brown meat in his jaws and a pack of starving mongrels at his heels. He made a wide circle around me, as though he feared I might prove a fresh competitor. I walked up Broadway in the direction of that strange powder, past silent shop windows displaying their mute wares to empty sidewalks, past the Capitol Theater, silent, dark, past the shooting gallery where rows of empty guns faced an arrested line of wooden ducks. Near Columbus Circle, I noticed models of 1939 motor cars in the showrooms facing empty streets. From over the top of the General Motors building, I watched a flock of blackbirds circling in the sky. I hurried on. Suddenly, I caught sight of the hood of a Martian machine, standing somewhere in Central Park, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. An insane idea. I rushed recklessly across Columbus Circle and into the park. I climbed a small hill above the pond at 60th Street, and from there I could see, standing in a silent row along the mall, 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the monsters that inhabit those machines. Suddenly, my eyes were attracted by an immense flock of black birds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground, and there below my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians, with the hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when the bodies were examined by the laboratories, it was found that they were killed by the putrefactive and disease bacteria against which their system were unprepared, slain after all man's defenses had failed by the humblest thing that God in his wisdom had put upon this earth. Before the cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that through all the deep of space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is the vision I have conjured up in my mind of life spreading slowly from this little seedbed of the solar system throughout the inanimate vastness of sidereal space, but that's a remote dream. It may be that the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve. To them, and not to us, is the future ordained, perhaps. Strange it now seems to sit in my peaceful study at Princeton, writing down this last chapter of the record begun at a deserted farm in Grover's Mill. Strange to watch children playing in the streets. Strange to see young people strolling on the green, where the new spring grass heals the last black scars of a bruised earth. Strange to watch the sightseers enter the museum, where the disassembled parts of a Martian machine are kept on public view. Strange when I recall the time when I first saw it, bright and clean cut, hard and silent, under the dawn of that last great day.
This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen, out of character to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was meant to be. The Mercury Theater's own version of dressing up in a sheet, jumping out of a bush, and yelling, "Boo!" Starting now, we couldn't soap all your windows and steal your garden gates, so we did the next best thing. We annihilated the earth in front of your very eyes and utterly destroyed the CBS. You will be relieved, I hope, to learn that we didn't mean it and that both institutions are still open. So, goodbye everybody, and remember please, this terrible lesson you learned today. That grinning, glowing, globular invader in your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch. And if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian. It's Halloween.
Tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations have brought to you The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, the 17th in the weekly series of dramatic broadcasts featuring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on Air. Next week, we will present to you a dramatization of 3 short stories. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.